When I visited Bristol for the first time, in 2014, I came across a statue in honour of Edward Colston, Member of Parliament, kidnapper, slave trader and mass murderer. My outraged letter to the local paper caused quite a stir in the city. Here are 2 short videos of my interviews the following day on BBC. Last year, 2020, with the Black Lives Matter movement in full force, protesters tore down the statue and threw it in the River Raven, while police officers looked on.
Bristol's Colston Hall has launched a £45 million fundraising campaign. Those behind it say they want to turn it into one of the best concert venues in Europe. But the battle could involve a fundamental change: its name. Andy Howard visited the venue this morning.
It's the biggest concert hall in all of the Southwest. It's hosted the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Queen, you name it. But after a £20 million development of the foyer 5 years ago, today we're talking about this part of the building, the older part. Now the hall wants £45 million to renovate here. Louise Mitchell is from the Colston Hall. What do you want to do, Louise?
We need to bring this building up to the standards of 21st century performance. The front of it is a wonderful place. It hasn't been looked at really since 1951, and concert performance and the sort of experience people expect have moved on so much since then. It's time for us to do our part in Bristol to bring our city up to standard.
With Colston's links to the slave trade and the amount of money you're talking about, that will bring up the issue of the place's name again. What can you tell us about that?
Well, we're really clear about this, and we'll be looking at the opportunity to rename all or part of the building, and that may well be linked to the fundraising campaign that we're doing. I'd like to have a building that we're proud of, and I think that's very important.
So they're not ruling out renaming this place, and a man who would be quite keen on that is Mike Gardner. He started a whole campaign by writing a letter to the local newspaper one day. Mike, is it time that the name Colston was wiped from Bristol history?
Absolutely. Edward Colston was one of the most evil men in the history of this country. He's responsible for the kidnapping, torture and murder of more than 100,000 people. Apparently he's given money to charity. I say a big deal. I see that sign, Colston, letters like this. I see evil. It means evil, greed, death, torture. It's time to change it into something positive, not this vile mass murderer.
2 sides to this story then. £45 million to renovate. But there's another issue that might be its biggest battle.
Now, it's a venue which has seen sell-out performances from some of the biggest names in entertainment since the 1860s, actually, and now the Colston Hall is in need of a major overhaul to the tune of £45 million.
Concert organisers want to make it one of the best venues in Europe. But as Andy Howard reports, the decision to remodel the hall has reignited a debate over its name.
It's the largest concert hall in the Southwest and has been full of music, laughter and debate for almost 150 years. But it's not only the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or the Bay City Rollers who have caused huge queues in the past.
This is Harry Carpenter bidding you good evening from the ringside of the Colston Hall, Bristol. Tonight, professional heavyweight boxing.
After a new £20 million foyer 5 years ago, today the focus was on this, the older part of the building. Inside, the auditorium is grand but weary. This band from the Congo arrived this afternoon and had to bring all their gear in through one small door. The acoustics here were designed for the 1950s.
At the moment, London Symphony Orchestras have to leave people at home because our stage isn't big enough. The backstage is lamentable. I'm very ashamed of having those facilities that we have. So it just needs an upgrade all the way around. Almost everything could be a lot better, and in every competitor city in the UK, they are better.
But for some, the main issue isn't about what goes on behind the front door, it's what's written above it. Edward Colston was a Bristolian merchant in the 1600s. He founded many schools and almshouses in the city, many of which still bear his name. In fact, this memorial plaque here says he's one of the most virtuous and wise sons of Bristol. But much of his wealth was made through the slave trade. So has this figure loomed over the city of Bristol for too long?
When I see the word Colston, it represents to me evil, greed, death, torture. Do the people in Bristol want to be reminded of that all the time? It should be renamed about someone that's brought some good to the city, something positive, not something as negative as this horrible man here.
The Colston Hall says it will now consider changing its name, and says when it comes out of the other side of renovation, it could be called anything. Andy Howard, BBC Points West in Bristol.
This nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.